thing that makes me think my neighborhood is a big menagerie.
And those were the little short films, which I still am.
Under the bright lights of Hollywood in the 1930s, Shirley Temple was once hailed as America's little angel, with her bright smile, curly hair, and innocent dance moves that captivated millions of viewers. Born on April 23, 1928 in Santa Monica, California, she quickly became the ideal symbol of childhood and American princess in the eyes of the public. But behind that halo is a heartbreaking truth that few people know. Why was a 12-year-old girl put in sensitive situations, and who were the 5 men who assaulted her? In today's video, let's delve deeper and explore the whole story. Shirley Temple, at just 12 years old, she was not only an American princess but also the embodiment of an ideal childhood that many generations aspired to. Under the bright lights of Hollywood in the 1930s, a little angel appeared and touched millions of hearts with her bright smile and dance moves. However, Shirley was forced to participate in sensitive scenes and even abused by some powerful figures in the entertainment industry. At the age of 85, in a rare sharing, she publicly named 5 men who she said ruined her life, people who once stood behind the stage lights, but brought her indelible pain. The story of Shirley Temple is not only a sad chapter in Hollywood history, but also a warning about the dark side of the industry that was once considered a dreamland. Shirley Temple's childhood was a story of stolen secrets, hidden by power and fear. At the age of 3, Shirley was forced to act in baby burlesques, where children were forced to act as adults in sexually explicit situations. No one realized the cruelty that was going on behind the scenes. Once, for ruining a scene, Shirley was locked in a cold room, the punishment room, just because she was an imperfect child. Yet, with her bright eyes and signature curly hair, Shirley quickly became a $1 million profit machine for the studios, a movie icon, but also a luxury item exploited to the point of exhaustion. She seemed to live in a fairy tale world, but in real life she suffered horrifying shocks. At the age of 12, Shirley was abused by Arthur Freed, a famous producer for MGM. He undressed in front of her. In a panic, Shirley could only laugh as an instinctive defense reaction, then ran out of that room. However, the hauntings did not stop. At the age of 17, she continued to become a victim of David O. Selznick, the movie mogul behind the legendary film Gone with the Wind. This was just the tip of the iceberg. Behind it were forgotten records, names that once held absolute power in Hollywood, people who manipulated and hurt the girl who seemed to live only in the light and fame. Behind the glitter of 1930s Hollywood was a vast entertainment empire, where it was not the light, but the darkness that devoured the soul. Shirley Temple, who always smiled brightly for the camera, was in fact a child who had no right to cry. There were forces, from the media to political groups, who were said to have sought to buy her silence, to protect the reputation of an industry that had prospered on the pain of children. There was a pivotal event, a hidden piece of the puzzle, that could change the way the world saw Shirley Temple, no longer as America's little angel, but as the victim of a closed and cruel system. Hollywood, not the city of lights, but the place that once devoured the soul of a little girl, who smiled only because the world forced her to. In the following, we will go behind the scenes of the biggest studios of that era, where every contract was a sentence, and every child's laughter could be a cry for help that was ignored. Shirley Temple, at the age of 12, was forced to participate in haunting and distorted scenes that no child should ever appear in. She was not just a commercial commodity, but also the victim of a sophisticated conspiracy, where the innocence of childhood was stripped away to serve the needs of producers and directors who did not care about the psychology or natural development of a child. They asked Shirley to express emotions and sensuality that she herself did not understand, and then they called it art. In the films of her childhood, Shirley Temple was often required to display emotions that were entirely inappropriate for someone her age. Scenes with romantic or sensual undertones were inserted, even though she had no understanding of what they meant. I didn't understand why I had to do those things. I was just a child, but I was forced into a world I had no control over, Shirley shared in a later interview. That feeling of powerlessness, not just physically but mentally, became a haunting presence throughout her life. The scenes didn't stop at questionable gestures or expressions. They came with harsh criticism and cruelty from the very people directing her path. They kept asking me, no matter how much I resisted or felt uncomfortable. I had to comply, she recalled. They said I wouldn't have a career if I didn't do what they asked. That sentence, she explained, made her feel like she no longer belonged to herself. Sleepless nights turned into an obsession. The harsh words from producers and directors echoed endlessly in her mind, making it impossible for Shirley to ever truly find peace, even long after the spotlight had faded. Inside Shirley Temple is a young girl who lived in an environment that had no place for innocence or purity of childhood. The damage did not stop at her childhood. Throughout her career, there were 5 men who left deep marks on her life, and one of them took her virginity when she was only 17. The first man, and the one who made Shirley lose faith in love, was her first husband, John Agar. Their love was once seen by the public as a fairy tale, a perfect combination of 2 famous stars. But behind the lights and photos together was a painful reality that Shirley carried with her forever. When they married, Shirley gave her whole heart to Agar, believing in the promise of eternal love and happiness. But the truth came very quickly and very cruelly. Agar never really loved her. He loved the fame that the marriage brought him, the glory of being called Shirley Temple's husband. He didn't love me. He loved the attention that came with being with me, Shirley once said, her voice laced with pain that had never really gone away. I gave him all my love, and he betrayed me when I needed him most. The breakup between Shirley Temple and John Agar was more than a broken relationship. It was a devastating blow to the soul of a woman at the height of her fame. Betrayed by the person she trusted most, at a time when the world still saw her as an untouchable star, Shirley lost faith not only in love, but in life itself. It was the kind of betrayal that was so profound, a wound that Hollywood glamour could not hide. Shirley fell into a downward spiral, where love became a tool of manipulation, and loneliness became a silent companion. But the betrayal was not limited to the relationship between the two. During that time, Shirley was drawn into all-night parties, chaotic and unstable revelry, a world of debauchery led by Agar himself and his famous Hollywood friends. She is drawn into scandalous adventures, sleepless nights, and strange situations that a 17-year-old girl with a hopeful heart should never have experienced. The glamorous world Shirley once believed in suddenly crumbles before her eyes. And then, she realizes a cruel truth. Hollywood is not just a place to pursue dreams, it is also a place filled with lies, where innocence is traded at a terrible price. The relationships and people around her seemed to have only one goal, to climb higher, even if it meant stepping on others. The fame Shirley had once dreamed of became a trap that took everything from her, love, trust, and the last remaining innocence. I thought love would save me, Shirley said in an interview many years later, but it turned out that it was my downfall. Then came the second man, even more dangerous than the first. Someone who not only manipulated her mind but also violated her body. As everything in Shirley's life began to fall apart, she once again put her trust in the wrong person. Jack Haley, her co-star in The Wizard of Oz, with his handsome looks and charming gentleness, was more than just an actor. He appeared as a refuge, someone who truly cared about the person inside Shirley, not just the image of a famous star. But behind the mask of friendship and professional sympathy lies a much darker intention. He knew how to play on my fears, Shirley later admitted, her voice thick with regret. He played on my vulnerability, telling me sweet lies. I thought I had found someone who would save me from my pain. But then I realized only I could save myself. From emotional comfort, Haley gradually turned to control, subtly and deliberately. With his natural acting ability, he hid his true intentions, weaving a web of lies that squeezed Shirley tighter with each word. What she thought was love turned out to be an elaborate cage disguised as false tenderness. Still young, still yearning for real connection, Shirley fell into a toxic relationship that she didn't even realize was working until it was too late. The words of love became a tool of manipulation, and control slowly slipped from her grasp. Every decision, every step was governed under the shadow of love. That was the moment Shirley began to understand Hollywood was not a place for the honest heart or those who yearned for sincere affection. It was a place where freedom was taken away in the most gentle way. Because of her vulnerability, Haley is not only manipulated, but the entire industry seems to be born to exploit it. Behind the bright lights and glitzy red carpets are the glances, the hidden gazes, and the constant pressure to smile despite the pain. From endless parties to staged meetings, Shirley is sucked into a world where affection becomes conditional and trust becomes weaponized. One by one, the people she trusted reveal themselves. They don't love her, they love her aura. In such a harsh world, Shirley gradually understands what she thought was love is actually power disguised as charm. And then in the next chapter, we meet the third person, the one who not only destroys her body but also steals her identity. The third person who made her feel no longer at home in the splendid world built on lies. Shirley Temple was constantly manipulated and taken advantage of by the very people she once trusted. And one of the most painful betrayals came from Victor Fleming, the legendary director of The Wizard of Oz. In the eyes of the public, he was a genius. But to Shirley, he was one of the most dangerous manipulators. Fleming, who was supposed to be her guide and protector in the brutal world of showbiz, used his power to destroy that trust. He didn't just direct her innocent roles, he created scenes that a child couldn't understand, constantly pushing her to the edge. Hiding under the guise of art. What he asked for was no longer work, it was coercive behavior, cloaked in authority. He turned me into a puppet, Shirley later said. He told me, Shirley, if you want to be famous, you have to do this. Those words, not the dialogue, were seared into her memory like a scar that would never fade. And it didn't stop with the wrong scenes. Over the years, Fleming continued to intrude into her life, constantly manipulating her emotions, devaluing her self-worth, and stripping away the innocence that was once the most precious thing she possessed. Every time Shirley resisted, he used his reputation as a knife to force her to submit. I spent countless sleepless nights, haunted by his cruel words, she recounted, her voice quiet as if it still echoed the past. But Shirley never thought she had a choice. Those sleepless nights were not just exhaustion, but a sign of deep psychological trauma, inflicted by the very man she once considered her guide. For Shirley, the aura was no longer a fairy tale dream. It was a gilded cage, and Victor Fleming was the one who locked the door. He didn't just betray her trust, he turned it into a tool to mold her into a product, not a person. His voice, his orders, his coldness, all became echoes that haunted Shirley's mind until the end of her life. What she remembers is not the grueling days of filming, but the moments that shattered her soul, when a man she once considered a mentor saw her as nothing more than a vehicle for his own ambitions. As a child, Shirley was forced to endure horrors the industry never dared to name. The suggestive scenes, the psychological manipulation, and betrayal from the very people who were supposed to protect her. These are not just bad memories. They are open wounds, they never heal. Those years didn't just steal Shirley's childhood, they shattered her trust in adults, in her mentors, and in the system that made her a star. And in the next chapter, we meet the fourth person, the one who dragged her deeper into the darkest corridors of power and secrecy in Hollywood. Thank you for watching the video. Please join us in the next videos. Thank you and see you again.